On November 18, 1883, some American towns had noon twice. Not poetically, their clocks reached noon by the sun, then were moved to the railroad's new time and reached noon again. For one peculiar Sunday, 12 o'clock was less a fact than a negotiation. Before time zones, noon was local. When the sun reached its highest point above your town, that was your town's noon. A few miles east, noon arrived a little earlier. A few miles west, a little later. For most of history, this was perfectly sensible. Your neighbor's clock could be several minutes different, and nobody missed a connection in Chicago because Chicago was several days away. Then the railroad compressed the map. Suddenly, a train could leave one town's time, pass through another railroad's time, and arrive under a third. A timetable was no longer just a list of departures. It was a translation table for reality. One surviving pocket watch from the period makes the problem visible. It could display two times at once, local time and railroad time. Keep that watch with us. On one dial, noon still belongs to the sun. On the other, noon belongs to a network. Railroads needed trains, stations, dispatchers, and telegraph offices to agree on the same minute. Local solar time was wonderfully accurate about where you were. It was terrible at coordinating where you were going. The solution was not a better clock. It was a shared rule. Railroad planners proposed dividing North America into broad bands of standard time. The final system named 5 zones: intercolonial, eastern, central, mountain, and Pacific. 4 covered the continental United States. Inside each band, clocks would ignore the tiny solar differences between towns and display one agreed time. Cross a boundary, and the hour changed cleanly. Stay inside it, and the minutes finally behaved. The geometry was elegant. Earth turns 360 degrees in about 24 hours, so an ideal 1-hour zone spans roughly 15 degrees of longitude. The actual borders were less elegant because mountains, cities, politics, and railroad routes stubbornly refused to arrange themselves into tidy orange slices. On our pocket watch, the local dial now drifts quietly away from the railroad dial. Nothing is wrong with either one. They are answering different questions. At noon on November 18, 1883, the railroads made the switch. Station clocks were reset to standard railway time. In places where local noon had already passed, the hands moved back and noon arrived again. Elsewhere, clocks jumped forward and a small piece of the day simply disappeared. No act of Congress had created this moment. A network of private railroad companies changed the practical meaning of time because the old interface could no longer coordinate the system they had built. Cities began adopting the new standard. Timetables became legible. Telegraph signals could synchronize clocks across distance. The railroad dial on our watch stopped being a specialist's tool and started becoming ordinary time. Not everyone was impressed. To critics, railroad time was an outside authority, overruling the sun, the town clock, and local custom. Standard time solved a coordination problem by deleting a little local autonomy. And the new map was not actually natural. The 15-degree bands were a model, the borders bent around human decisions. A town near an edge could share noon with a city far away, while the sun overhead politely declined to participate. The system succeeded precisely because it was artificial. That is, the reversal at the center of standard time. Clocks became more useful when they became slightly less local. In 1918, the United States finally placed standard time into federal law, decades after the railroads had already made it normal. Today, the same agreement sits underneath flight schedules, calendar invitations, bank transfers, server logs, and the tiny automatic clock in the corner of your phone. We still argue about the borders, we still change some clocks seasonally, but we rarely ask the sun what minute it is. On our 2-dial watch, local noon and railroad noon were never really rivals. One described a place, the other coordinated a world. Time zones did not tell the sun where noon was. They told everyone else which noon to believe. If you enjoy the forgotten systems hiding inside ordinary life, subscribe to The Lost Interface and tell us which one to reconstruct next.